All right, here we are with another episode of TO Battle Talk. My name is Chris. I'm from TOBattleBlog. I'm here with
Matt.
He's also from TOBattleBlog. We today are going to be talking about a few different things that are happening in the world of battle rap. The first big one that we'll address is the announcement of the TS, Total Slaughter Battle League. Eminem presents Total Slaughter. Joe Budden versus Hall of the Dawn, and Mook versus Lux 2. If you're listening to us, you are well aware of what is happening there. You've also got, unannounced, but pretty sure it's happening, the T-Rex versus Daylight battle. They were the ones that won their bracket of the tournament that TS will be putting out, I guess, over the course of the next couple months leading up to the big event on July 12th. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll also talk about Vendetta 2 Redemption from King of the Dot. I was there in LA, front row, with a camera and my phone twittering.
Did you have a notepad?
I didn't have a notepad. Because between the two of us at events, it's like, one of us can take notes, one of us can watch the battle very carefully, the other one can be like tweeting, running around, doing interviews, whatever it is. Trying to do all of that alone in LA was not easy. So, I think I got a pretty good look at all of the battles. You've watched them all on pay-per-view. I've watched a few of them on pay-per-view. So, I'm looking forward to hearing your impressions of that. We'll talk about that, and who knows, all sorts of other things along the way. So, let's start with Total Slaughter. First of all, what do you think of the name of the league?
Well, it sounds kind of promotional.
Yeah.
To put in slaughter into the name of it. I mean, it's very clearly a promotional tool in a way, this whole thing. But, I mean, it kind of fits with battling. Like, I can see a lot of the leagues putting on an event called Total Slaughter.
Yep.
We've got events like Vengeance, Vendetta, like all these.
We have a league called Ultimate Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior. You know, they're all sort of in this vein. So, I mean, in that sense, I guess they're kind of consistent with what goes on in battle culture.
Yep. Have you seen the trailer?
It was one of those things where it dropped while I was at work, and I'm in an area where a lot of people can see my screen while at work, so I'm kind of like keeping it in a corner where like people aren't like, "What the fuck are you watching?"
Right.
So I paid a bit of attention to the trailer, but wasn't totally looking at it. Certainly listened to all of it.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of coverage about this press release. Rolling Stone had a pretty lengthy article with interviews with Paul Rosenberg, who is Eminem's manager. So that's how he kind of fits in. So they had commentary from him. They had interviews with Royce the 5'9". I would think Budden too. I didn't check all that carefully, but it was a lengthy article that repeated a lot of the content within the press release, which I've also seen. And so you had that article. You had Yahoo News or Yahoo Music was quoting the Rolling Stone article at length. People Magazine was quoting it. This piece of content, like it not only has gone viral throughout the battle community and everyone has an opinion on it, but it has bubbled above the surface of battle rap into, I guess, mainstream music journalism.
Which battling almost never does,
yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
It's probably just yesterday or 2 days ago did it drop?
Yeah.
That's probably more mainstream coverage that battling has gotten in several years, I would say.
And I mean, when it is covered by the mainstream, it's like, the most proposing hits BuzzFeed and goes viral and gets talked about, or the ghostwriting scandal made a few papers. But to just have a card, like the announcement of a new card or a new league, hit Time magazine is pretty much unheard of. So it's almost like the same coverage that Battle Fix or Battle Rap News or these kind of battle agencies would give to a new card, but all of a sudden, as soon as you have Eminem's name involved, it's hitting People magazine.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. Like, if Eminem's name is not on this, people would have nothing to do with this.
Right. Oh, yeah. So, you've got the main battle here that people are paying attention to is Budden versus Hall of the Dawn. Now, are you a Budden fan?
I only know one Budden song.
Okay, so no.
I think I remember seeing Pump It Up on 106 in Park maybe 12 or 13 years ago. Oh, maybe even longer. 12 or 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind it back then. And I was kind of shocked when, like, months ago, I discovered... Well, I'd heard that Budden was a Battle fan and stuff. I was kind of shocked that he had, like, 800,000 Twitter followers. I was like, this guy, like, what does he do? He's still around?
Yeah, and I mean, in the last couple of days, we've seen him... I saw him interacting with John, with Norbs. So Budden is definitely, like, getting in the mix. And he's often... in the past had opinions on battles. He's a battle fan, so it's not like this is from out of the blue trying to capitalize on the battle culture. I mean, you could see it either way. This is obviously good promotion for the new Slaughterhouse album. Good promotion for Budden, who has been in Love and Hip Hop, who has this kind of reality TV element to him. So this is kind of another aspect of that. Do you think... well, let's talk about this first. Do you think Budden stands a chance against Hall of the Dawn?
I do, actually. Our last frame of reference for an industry guy in a battle is Cannabis versus Disaster, which was an absolute disaster.
Right.
And I mean, that was very much case with a guy, contrary to what you said with Budden, a guy in Cannabis who was just trying to catch some buzz and clearly had no idea what he was getting into, to the point where he just brought a notebook with 30 pages of rhymes to this motherfucker to the event and completely embarrassed himself. Right.
And yeah, I mean, that's... in the end, it ended up being the best thing that could have happened for King of the Dot, and even battle rap as a whole, because you had an industry guy come in and do so bad that it had viral, like a capacity to go viral, because everyone wanted to see this guy that they had heard of before, not recently, but in the past, was definitely a big enough hip hop star that people knew him.
And the numbers speak for themselves. Like, I think out of KOTD's battles, I think their still number one thing is a beatbox battle. Number one or two. But the number two, I think, last time I checked, battle view-wise, was the Disaster Candles.
Really?
Yeah, next to, and I think a fair bit behind, like, the Disaster DNA battle.
Interesting.
But, I mean, even though Cannabis completely shit the bed, people were into it. Where this is different is that, obviously, like you said, Budden knows something about battle culture, and he's into it, and he sort of knows what he's getting into, but he's also kind of behind the production in a sense. Like, this is a bit of a promotional tool, I take it, for Slaughterhouse, that I suspect they have an album coming out, and that's what a lot of this is about.
Yeah, they've been on tour for the last few weeks or months, and I think they either have a new album out now or coming out soon. Probably not out yet, because I feel like we would have heard it, heard something about it coming out by now. But yeah, so this is, the League is Total Slaughter. It's presented by Shady Records and Eminem, who is their label and compatriot, I suppose. And the content seems to be coming out on this watchloud.com channel, which from what I've heard, I haven't seen any evidence of this, but what I hear, it's another Eminem, you know, umbrella industry.
Yeah.
So, just as an aside, Cannabis versus Disaster has 1.7 million views right now. So it, I think, probably is their, you know, number 2 or definitely within the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
From King of the Dot videos, but
that's not going to happen to Budden. Like,
right.
He's not going to pull a Cannabis in this.
Yeah, the bar.
There is even a chance that he could win it because, and I mean, I think we'll probably touch on our concerns with Total Slaughter at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, given his affiliation with the entire production, I don't think he's going to be made to look bad, and I think he knows what's at stake here, and he's not going to come with, you know, a few rehearsed lines and a bunch of written stuff. If anything, we're probably going to get something pretty good with
written in a notepad, you mean?
Right.
Right. Like, you know, reading written stuff.
Yeah. He's not going to pull it out of his shorts like...
Yeah. I mean, that's it, is that Cannabis set the bar so low for industry rappers, like, stepping into the battle rap game, that if Budden can, like, perform 3 rounds cleanly, he's the best industry rapper that has ever stepped into battle rapping.
Here's another thing. People were so psyched on the Cannabis thing at first that his first few bars, people were like, "Whoa, oh my god!" Like, you know, you look like Tom Cruise mom shoes. Yeah. People were going insane for that, and it's one of the worst things ever. So, like, for an industry guy to go into a battle, like, there are going to be enough people in the audience that are just, like, excited to see Budden battle that if he's any way decent at all, they're going to, like, hype it up so much. And also because, like, a lot of people in attendance for this, I take it, because it is going to be a live event, right?
It'll be a live event at the Hammerstein something.
Ballroom. Yeah.
So it's a big venue, and I think they're hyping it as the biggest venue that battle rap has ever had. You know, and I think there's a full balcony. There's
Summer Madness 2 is in a pretty big venue.
I think
I heard. I don't know if it's correct, but I heard it was like 2,500 for that event.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what I've seen quoted for this as well. Is about 2,000 or more, depending on are they just selling the floor seats, or are they selling the balcony, or are they selling the boxes? So yeah, I mean, Summer Madness 2 though was all battle rap fans, and the way that this is being promoted, you might have a lot of Budden fans or Slaughterhouse fans.
Or people who liked 8 Mile 10, 12 years ago and are like, oh, Eminem's involved with this battle thing. I enjoyed that. Like, I'm going to go to this. And I think, like, Hollow cannot bring the type of stuff he probably brought for Lux. Like, the simple shit for a crowd like that is what's going to win this.
Right.
And if Budden just brings some whatever basic stuff like I'm rich, you're whack, like no one's heard of you here, that might play really well. And like, he could probably win the crowd with that. Will it win on tape? That's probably not going to be the case. But I don't know. There's so much interesting stuff with this battle.
I mean, there's so much that we'll have to really talk about after it's happened. I've been trying to figure out if there's going to be a pay-per-view. I've been trying to figure out whether the footage will drop, how soon it'll drop, where it'll drop, all that. I have gotten a few answers out of the Total Slaughter Twitter account, but not any of those. I haven't seen, even in the press release, talk about where fans can see it other than to buy tickets to this, to the event itself. So yeah, let's talk about the impact on the greater battle rap landscape. Do you think, or obviously I think, it could both help and hurt the battle rap scene as it exists now. Who do you think does this help?
It helps Slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
It might help, or I suspect it will really help Eminem's wallet and things like that, which is sort of the reason why I'm concerned with it in a way. I suppose it could help like UW and URL as well. That like, you know, Mook and Lux and Hollow. I mean, as well as the other 8 guys. Like, it's very heavy URL roster that is going to be involved with this. So, you know, if people enjoy those battles, they're going to look those guys up on YouTube, and you know, a lot of them have been on KOTD, but you know, the stuff that's going to show up first in results is probably going to be the URL stuff, the stuff that has higher views. It could draw some more people into URL, so it could be good in that sense. I think. You know, I don't really see a huge upside for KOTD.
Yeah, I think again, it depends on how the event goes. So if everything's smooth and it gets all this mainstream attention and the battles are all great and the footage is great and the reviews are excellent, it legitimizes battle rap in a way that it hasn't been legitimized before. So you'll have sponsors coming in, you'll have more media coverage of the events, more mainstream media coverage, which helps everybody across the board, I think. Also, I mean, these battles, you know, Button versus Hollow, I mean, where else? Is that stealing it from a league? Like, it probably wasn't going to happen anywhere but something.
I really don't think so. Like, if Button is doing it for 100K or something, as you said, there's rumors about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think other leagues are going to be able to cobble together 100K.
No.
That's a lot of money. Like, you know, we pay a lot of attention to battling and we love it, but it's a pretty small subculture, and there's a bit of money changing hands here, but like, it's not a lot. Not enough that you can give 100K to a guy. Unless you come up with some, you know, great pay-per-view or something like that. Right.
I mean, likewise, too, because obviously Hollow's making money if Button's making that much. And then you've got Lux, who very publicly won't battle for less than 40K, and whether that's true or not, who knows, but versus Mook, who won't battle for less than 50K. And
yeah, again, I mean, I think Mook, didn't they say he got 25K for this Iron Solomon one?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what?
I mean, but now his price is probably even higher, even though it probably shouldn't be.
Right.
But it's exactly. I mean, so already, like, for talent, they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, renting out that venue.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the tickets come out May 2nd. So who knows if this podcast will be up by then? But it'll be interesting to see how much they're charging, if they're trying to get as many people in for $30 a pop, or if they're going to charge, you know, what URL charges, which is $75, $100 for an event. So that'll be interesting. And let's talk about who this potentially hurts.
I mean, I suppose, like, the culture as a whole is an obvious place to start. Like, it's kind of a fiasco, the event, or something like that. Or if, you know, one of my concerns is that, you know, because there's an industry guy in it and he has close affiliations with basically the production side of it, that it's going to somehow make Hollow look bad. Whether it's like making sure that they get 100 people in there just to hype up everything that that Button says, or if they give Button really generous editing or something like that. Anything to make Hollow look bad, I think, is bad for the culture as a whole, right?
And I mean, the trailer. I think it's worth mentioning the tone of the trailer, where you have Button being described as a platinum selling Goliath versus Hollow, who is an accomplished David. And, you know, David ended up winning that battle, but it's kind of like, I guess, glossing over how good Hollow is. You know, he is, and they also call Lux the undisputed king of battle rap, and it's like, well,
that's the bigger issue to
Yeah.
me, is that it's almost like they're fucking with Hollow in the trailer to start with.
mhm.
Because anyone who has seen the Hollow Lux battle, well, I mean, there is a fair amount of debate over who won that. I think you and I agree that Hollow won,
Hollow
right?
won that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who watch a lot of battles, and I mean, even a lot of battlers as well. Like if you poll, like, you know, Thesaurus and you know, guys who actually watch this shit,
Mhm.
Awkward's Disaster, I think they all agree that
I think Rex was like the only battler. There was actually a thread that someone put together the reactions, and I think it was only Rex who had Hollow winning at the beginning. Probably they'll come out of the woodworks, like, you know, since that battle happened, whatever, 4 months ago. And I see a lot of commentary from people saying like, oh yeah, after I watched it 8 times, I had Lux winning.
Well, okay, so I've seen some of like the YouTube bootlegs, and just like eyeballing it, it seems pretty even in the comments.
Okay, interesting.
So like it's not as if it's like, oh, you know, Hollow 80% of people think, like, it's pretty even actually. Like there are some like diehard Lux fans. It's like, if you've seen Kobe Bryant fans before, like on Twitter,
Mhm.
they think he's way better than Jordan. They still think he's better than LeBron,
Mhm.
even though Kobe played like 6 games this year. Like, they're crazy, right? Lux fans are kind of that level of crazy where like they will refuse to believe that anyone has ever beaten them, right?
Mm.
So I think in the trailer they say that he's like the undisputed king of battling or something along those lines,
Yeah.
and it's like, I think there's a bit of a dispute
Right.
over this. Like,
Yeah.
So that's
Right.
where.
And if he's the undisputed king, why is Button battling Hollow too?
Exactly, like the prize here, if you're the best like at battling, why would you want a rematch versus Mook, who had his last battle everyone hated?
Yeah.
You know, the prize here is going up against the industry guy with 800,000 Twitter followers,
Mhm.
who has a reality show, who's going to promote the hell out of this,
Mhm.
versus Mook, who has, you know, 50,000 Twitter followers and everyone has a bad taste in their mouth.
Right. Yeah.
So I am a little concerned, like, with the culture as a whole being affected if, you know, one of its leading lights, basically, in someone like Hollow to Dawn is, you know, maybe screwed over, or, you know, the victim of, you know, shitty editing, or people who don't know battling at all sort of hyping up Button stuff in the crowd,
Right.
or them even just planting Button fans in the crowd.
Yeah. Which is not, you know, not unheard of for sure. Yeah. And cool. Anything else we should talk about that?
Do you have any interest in Lux Mook?
Not really. Like,
I have interest in seeing Lux.
Yeah.
Again, like, I thought his. I mean, I agree with a lot of people. Like, I thought his third round had some really great shit in it against Hollow, and, you know, I loved the Calico battle as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of his older stuff. So, like, I'm interested to see what he's going to have versus Mook, but not really. Like, who would you actually rather see Lux against?
Oh,
Well,
man.
Daylight.
Daylight. I would rather see him versus Daylight.
Daylight, like, anyone who mentions Daylight versus Lux, like, Daylight is retweeting.
Yeah.
And like, and what's his face? Lux is. He's like tagged in all of those things. He's seen now, like, in his mentions on Twitter, he's seen thousands of people be like, yo, the best battle ever would be Lux and Daylight.
Mm-hmm. Thousands?
Do you think?
Or like,
well,
dozens?
No, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, like, there's at least hundreds of people that are calling for it.
Yeah.
I don't think he would ever do it, just because, like, Daylight is such a wild card, and I think Lux at this point, you know, when you're asking for 40K, you clearly, like, really control your environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you throw Daylight into that, you're kind of throwing that out the window.
Yeah.
you'd probably have to give him way more money than $40K to battle Daylight.
Yeah. Well, there was also one of the rumors from V2R was that they were trying to set up Lux versus Disaster, and it didn't, it didn't happen for whatever reason.
What about Lux Clips?
I'd rather see Hollow Clips. Lux Clips is a lot like Hollow.
I would rather see the Hollow Clips battle as well.
I mean, Mook Lux is one of the greatest battles of all time, and it's from a part of battling. It's like a chapter that had been closed, and people still talk about that as one of the most important battles that happened because of what came after it. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone demanding a rematch to settle the score once and for all.
No, I've never seen that either. So,
I don't know. It's a kind of a weird pick. It's like, let's take two guys who, fathered the gun bar scene that we have now, and have them do it again, hoping to recreate the magic. Like, I think that
it's kind of like another basketball analogy. It's like it's like having Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in '91 go against each other. It's like, oh, they're the two most obvious legends. Let's pit them against each other. It's like, oh, they're not quite as good as before. Although I would say Lux is still pretty good, but. It's that type of thing where they're just kind of like the two obvious choices, and it's like, oh, they battled each other before. Ah, well, the people in the crowd won't even know that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, I guess at this point, we'll see what happens. There's definitely a lot of potential, both good potential and bad potential. But
last thing. Does Hollow win?
Yeah, I mean, Hollow seems like a pretty, cool guy. I think that no matter what happens, he's probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
He'll go and he'll perform and he'll throw in some freestyle rebuttals and I think most of battling, the battle culture will say, yes, Hollow won.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess the danger is that, Budden brings in more people, or this event brings in more new fans than current fans. And the market becomes flooded with all these people who are just getting into it, who are like, Budden's the man, 3-0.
Yeah.
If they even know that term, I think that there is that danger that you're bringing in a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about. And, which is, I'm sure, the same problem that the people who were into battle rap 3 years before us have with everything that we say, So, I don't know. It could get really big, but I don't know if battling is really going to be good when it's really big. Like having, if there are 20, even 2,000 people, when was the last time a big crowd was a good crowd for a battle rap event?
Well, the last time there were 2,000 people was Summer Madness 2, and the crowd booed most guys at some point.
Right.
And I mean, Averb couldn't even rap, I don't think, against T-Rex, right? And he was talking to Smack, being like, yo, make them stop.
Yeah.
They can't even perform.
Yeah.
So, yeah it's
and
tough.
Yeah, I mean, World Dom 4 was half that size and either booed or talked through a lot of the battles. The Blackout crowd on day one was terrible and big, and only about 800. So the crowd could fuck it up, the battlers could fuck it up, the league could fuck it up, the editors could fuck it up. There's a lot at stake for your first event.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, with enough money and enough resources and enough professionals, they can prove us wrong, I guess.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing it. Like either way, I've wanted. You know, the whole cannabis thing was not good, and I've wanted for a while for an industry guy to get back in there, someone who actually is motivated and has something at stake, someone who's actually still like reasonably popular or has some sort of following and doesn't want to be completely humiliated.
Right.
And I think we'll get to see that with Button, and it could end up being pretty damn good.
Yeah. Yeah, and just one sentence aside, Mad Child was also another, at least from Canadian standards, fairly big industry guy who stepped in, beat Dirtbag Dan at, I think, World Dom 2, 2 or 3. I think 2.
Yeah, it was before 3. I was at 3 and it wasn't there.
Yeah. So that's the other case that people probably will forget about or just don't know about. But he did fine. He stepped in, won, I think, on a 3-2 decision, and moved on to the rest of his Canadian rapping career.
And he was going to face, I think, 360, and it just, things didn't work out.
Yeah.
I think I'd still like to see that because 360. It's interesting. He's kind of gone from battling to being an industry guy in a way, because apparently he's very popular in his native Australia. So I wouldn't mind even seeing that battle.
Yeah. And then the last thing on industry stuff was earlier today I saw, do you know Absol?
That's a familiar name. Well, who's Absol?
He's I've heard his music, but it's been a long time. It's like he's a kind of in that schoolboy Q
right
feel of like
okay,
artsy, a bit, throwback hip hop. But just today on Twitter, he was saying like, "Oh, I think I could probably do pretty well in a rap battle." So, and Organic and Lush were both like, well, we're the people you need to talk to about it. And, it'll be interesting to see if, guys like that who, think that this is an interesting culture that they'd like to dip their toe in, will go to Eminem's league because that's where, like, that has a reputation as being associated with Eminem. Or, like, who knows, like, Lupe Fiasco versus Disaster. Is that going to be on Total Slaughter? Like, these kind of industry versus battle guys, there's definitely a lot of potential there. Eminem versus Disaster,
Yeah, I don't see Eminem doing it, but
no,
I would gladly watch it.
But in a year or two, if they have,
he's got a new album that he's. I don't know if he needs the promotion though. Like, even his newer, shittier albums still debut at #1.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, but it's more that if like. Say Budden cleans up and then Joel Ortiz comes in and headlines the next event and Crooked Eye beats somebody in the next event, and then it's like it becomes a safe space for industry guys to come in and like battle, I guess. Who knows?
Are there any industry guys that you think would be good at battling or that you would like to see?
Well, like Cool Keith versus Daylight, I would watch the hell out of that.
That's great. Yeah.
There's
that's very good.
Oh fuck! What's the guy's name? Who would you want to see? I need to look him up.
I'm just naturally thinking of guys that I like, and it's like I like Action Bronson, but I don't think he'd be good in a battle. Like Earl Sweatshirt, he would not be good in a battle at all. I can't think of guys who would be good in a battle. I don't know, man. That's tough. You have to have a fair amount of. You have a fair amount of charisma, I think. You have to have some sort of I think almost old school ability where you could freestyle if necessary. But yeah, I don't know. Some people, man, I'm racking my brains. I can't think of dudes that would be good at it.
Who is the artist who had Stanley Kubrick? He was on Soundbombing 2. R.A. the Rugged Man. That's the name I've been looking for.
Right.
Like him versus Bender, or someone like that. I think R.A. and I think he comes from a battling background as well. But anyhow, we've talked way too long about this.
Yeah.
So
Let's move on.
Let's move on. I'm going to pause the recording and we're going to go grab a beer. Here's a musical interlude. Bum, 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 bum. All right. Ba, 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 ba. We are back. We are here now to talk about V2R. Overall, out of 10, what would you give that event?
This isn't supposed to be harsh. I would give it a 7.
A 7.
Like a strong 7.
Okay.
I thought the battles were pretty good. I think maybe the 7 comes in large part due to, you know, some of the other previous events being so large and like so much going on in them, and you know, kind of being spoiled in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the battles were pretty solid. I thought, you know, some of the guys who are normally from outside of the KOTD family of battlers, you know, some of them came a bit light, maybe. But I think there were, you know, what were there? Were there 7 battles in the end? 8?
There were 8 scheduled, 7 happened.
Okay, so of the 7, I would say like probably 4 were really strong.
Which 4?
I would say Big K Thesaurus, Nitty B Magic, Daylight Chilla, and then maybe one of either Myers KG or Caustic Aver, just for
all the wrong,
reasons. Just like
yeah.
kind of the sideshow element of it. And then there's Tax as well, and then what's the 7th one here?
Oh man, this is always a hard game to play.
Yeah. Big T Bender.
Right.
Yeah, which I wouldn't call a great battle.
Okay. Yeah. That's.
What would you give it?
I'd
probably give it higher.
I'd give it about an 8. I'd say. I thought that Thesaurus versus Big K was the battle of the night. I thought Big K lived up to his last performance.
Oh, yeah.
And Thesaurus had a lot of good content. I thought Daylight had, for me, one of the best performances I've seen from him. And definitely one of the best performances of the night. And Chilla also did really well.
Yep.
I
would, if I was KOTD, I would keep booking someone like Chilla. Like, out of the URL, like, stable of dudes, you know, he did pretty well against the Dead Man, and I think took that decisively.
Mm-hmm.
In the battle versus Daylight, again, like, came very well prepared, had some huge lines. He had the blue meth line in front of meth at the end, which was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he seems to put in a lot of effort for these battles, and if you are going to like book some of the East Coast dudes to come out who are not traditionally from KOTD, I would continue to look at him. Yeah,
and he's the guy that puts in a lot of effort no matter what league he's in. His battle against Blackheart Adonis in iBattle, I think he won that and did really well in it. You know, a lot of the smaller leagues that he gets booked in, he doesn't slack.
Yeah.
It feels like. And I think also he's, you know, of that style, that he was one of the people who helped popularize it along with Bullets and QP. He's one of them that still is doing it freshly, who's still writing, you know, kind of head nod rather than eye roll, associative scheming. So I thought that battle was really good, and Myers and KG was like a great way to start the night off. You know,
yeah, that's Myers' energy is definitely the way to start a night off.
Yeah,
like he's great. Like he's so entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no off switch. Like he's just like full intensity the entire time.
Yeah,
it's very entertaining, and like I think he's very much part of you know, a new style of battling. Like there's certainly wordplay in there as well, but it's a lot of just like quick witty or funny or hard stuff. You know, it
Yeah.
just like comes at you in a torrential storm or something like
Right.
that, right? And it's just, and
he's like I've described him like years ago as a freight train. Like he just like he's got so much heart, so much conviction, so much material too.
Mhm.
Like him and Daylight, I think, are probably the two most active battlers right now. And Daylight will every once in a while just like
box
box for 3
Shadow
rounds,
box, yeah.
or you know we'll pull antics to kind of like get
or
away
recycle.
with.
He has recycled.
True,
cars.
yeah. And but I mean, like, I don't care if he does.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't really care either.
Right at this point, Daylight I still think is the most entertaining battler.
Oh, he still is.
Yeah,
yeah. He's. I don't think he's relinquishing that title anytime soon.
Right. Yeah, and it somehow does something new and fresh every time. And like, I see so many people complaining about, oh, like just bring bars, like, you know, enough with the antics. But it's like, no, just keep me entertained, and you can do whatever you want. You know, as long as I'm still
Daylight will be relevant as long as he keeps us on our toes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I don't see any reason why that's going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so we're talking about Myers.
Yeah.
Myers, like his second round, I was watching it last night. Like the crowd was going insane. Like basically, like every 10 seconds that he was spitting, like they had to stop for like 15 seconds or something like that. It just seemed like everything he said, the crowd was going absolutely insane for.
Do you remember the lines? Because I haven't watched that since seeing it live.
I wish I remembered the lines. Yeah, now that I have a couple beers in me,
Okay,
it's starting to slip away.
Yeah, because I find with him, with Danny Myers, he like for every 3 lines he spits that I enjoy, there's like, or maybe more than that. For every like 6 or 7 lines that he really hits hard with, he'll spit one that's like, I roll my eyes at it, and I roll my eyes, and everybody else is reacting. And I thought with Myers versus Nitty, like the classic that was, I think comes mostly from the environment and the atmosphere of that battle, and a lot of like, and the performances obviously as well. But there are some on both sides. There are some terrible lines, like Marlowe versus Shovel T, bad bar battle kind of lines, like including, and I'll name a few. Rum Nitty says, "We are like 2 identical knots, or we are like 2 identical bows tied. We are not the same." That's terrible. It's so stretched. And then likewise with Myers, you've got the "I was raised in a home made of Australian beer. That's a foster home," which leads to the biggest reaction of the battle, and also to his biggest reaction, where he's like flexing and screaming and going crazy. And it's like, that's the pinnacle of that battle on a line that, if it had been said by anyone else, I think would have gotten like laughed at. You know, people still laugh at that bar.
That bar in particular, people would have loved in the Bad Bars battle.
Yes.
The foster home.
Like, exactly.
That would totally fit in with that one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So, I don't know. I like both of those guys, you know, on a personal level. And Myers is just like, he's probably like the most lovable guy in battle rap. Like, he's so passionate about it. He's always into it.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, battling on radio shows. He's like always in it, always in the mix. And I think what really sets him apart from everyone else right now is he is having the most fun doing it. And that's something that has kind of been lost in battle rap as it gets, you know, bigger stages, more at stake. You've still got Myers in there like tearing it up and doing it for the fun of it, really.
Yeah. No, I agree. Myers is great. Book him on his many cards for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Myers. What did you think about KG in that battle?
KG had some nice stuff. It's not a diss on KG. He's not, like, certainly not as likable as Myers, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. But like, there's something kind of infectious about Myers, and for whatever reason, like just in his being, KG just doesn't have that for whatever reason, right? Like, but I mean, at the same time, like he's still pretty nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of his content's good, and he's very clearly getting a big push from the West Coast. He's had Daylight. The Myers battle is a nice setup for him. Who else has he had?
Lotte?
Right, Lotte, and he did well in that battle too. Especially live, because I don't know. A lot of his content is really complex.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's got a style right now that you're seeing more and more of. From Daylight, from him, from Nitty as well, where it's like let's make the wordplay as complex as possible, and sometimes that's really hot if you get it, and sometimes it's really stretched. But if people kind of get it, they still react for it. That was the one thing that I noticed with the LA crowd specifically, was that they were going crazy for schemes, and some of the better writing, especially Bender's, both Bender and Big T, I thought got slept on like horrendously.
Yeah.
Especially Bender, because his lines with something about dumping tea in the river, like the Boston Tea Party or the Revolution or whatever the line was. I felt like I was the only person reacting to that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best examples of really strong writing on the night. But it felt like Bender kind of rushed it because he wasn't getting much reaction. And then when he was really rushing it and doing the kind of clowning Big T for the gun sounds, like that's when people started getting into it. So I don't know. I don't know if the style is changing or if that's just like a few people in a crowd. Doesn't necessarily indicate anything. But I thought that a lot of the strong like punches or like kind of one-off lines, the well-crafted ones, were getting slept on, while cheap word association or even stretched word association was getting a ton of reaction.
I mean, in a lot of ways, that's sort of like the predominant thing in battling. So if you're someone who's just been watching battles for the past year, and there's a scheme where you get a few of the references in it, maybe that's just what moves the crowd right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I know I've seen a lot of people like complaining about schemes for the last 6 months, but it seems to be moving more towards that, especially to a lot of the PG guys, both on UFF and in the URL battles that are dropping recently. You have a lot of like that spelling wordplay, that kind of language wordplay where it's, I'll put, B in the ER. You had that from Big T.
Oh yeah, there was a fair bit of that at V2R, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some spelling in there.
Yeah, which is something that I think I've been clowning for a long time now, and that a lot of the people who've been following King of the Dot have kind of moved past, whereas URL seems to be just picking it up right now.
There was actually, like, going back to Myers and KG, there was a lot of KG, KGB, like there's a lot of name flip type stuff as well going on in that, and various spelling.
Yeah. But it felt like overall on that card there weren't all that many people that really went out of their way to like make fun of their opponent. And I think that Caustic is really the prime example of someone that was trying to punk his opponent.
Yeah, like talking about his shirt or something like that.
Right.
Which is like kind of, I mean, maybe we're just like really old school or something like that. But part of the reason why I got into battling is just like dudes making fun of other dudes.
Right.
And, one of the first favorite battles I had was like Kid Twist Dumbfounded.
Right. That's one of mine too, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and like, it's hilarious, and like battling has moved so far away from stuff like that.
Right.
That when you get a guy like Caustic, who is like goes all the way back to that era and still brings some of those principles to like present day battling. It's like kind of refreshing now. Like even though it's like a pretty old school tactical approach, like just to like make fun of a dude's hair and make fun of a dude's clothes, or you know that he ran away from some fight, like anything remotely personal or that you can see on a guy at that time, to me is great, and so few people do it nowadays.
Yeah, agreed. And you know, both of us, I think, have said in the past, like, that direct attacks on your opponent, either his character or his past or his personality, is the style that I think can carry battle rap forever.
Yeah,
because there's always new guys. They're always doing new dumb things that you can make fun of. But this whole associative scheming is really like moving away from that. This wordplay stuff is moving away from that, and it's more. You know, I thought that Day Chilla, you know, was more of a competition on like name flips. Let me show you like how well I can write. Most of Day's first was just like a Mortal Kombat scheme that had like that was talking about himself and his opponent, but nothing specific to, you know, to Chilla.
Yeah, and that's part of the like now there are so few judged battles now, right? But naturally I'm thinking, oh, who won this battle? And when I'm thinking of it, it's way murkier than it used to be, and part of the reason for that is that now it's like a writing competition, whereas like before it was like, well, who skewered the guy better?
Right.
And that's what it was about. And now it's like, oh, who had the better schemes? Or like, you know, this guy had like a corny thing happen here, so like I'll talk a point from him. Like,
right.
And now it's different. It's not the same shit. I mean, I guess someone like Bender kind of did go at Big T a bit as well.
Yeah, and Big T was a guy that when I saw that battle as a whole, I thought that Big T didn't do great. Watching the video, I appreciated his approach a lot more.
I didn't think he was bad. Like the way people were selling it was that, like, he just tried something and it failed miserably. And I didn't get that impression. If anything, I thought that he just came a bit light. Like, I would have liked just a little more in each of his rounds. But I didn't think the stuff that he had was particularly bad.
Yeah.
I just think he could have done a little more.
Yeah. His approach seemed to be like clowning Bender over the multis by multiing a lot and kind of making fun of that style. But it's weird because like, and I mentioned this in the recap, is that Bender's multis in Vendetta 1 was like the highlight of the night.
Yeah.
You know, it highlighted the year. It got him that performance got him performance of the year.
Yeah.
And 2 years prior had gotten performance of the year against Miracle, doing something very similar with this aggressive multis. And him doing that and then T clowning him on that, all of that got slept on.
Yeah.
You got, not necessarily slept on, but got no reaction. And I don't know if it's just like that we've moved on from that we've heard so many other people do it, that it's lost its impact now. But, you know, there's always the danger. I've found when battlers like imitate their opponent's style to clown him, or like say one of their lines and say like, wasn't that a bad line? The crowd never reacts to it. And it kind of like, it almost works against them to be like, he said this specific thing, isn't that terrible? But it's like, yeah, but you just said it. And it's now taking points away from your performance because you repeated those same shitty words, and they kind of like lose momentum on that. That's just like an overall.
Osa mentioned like the bike rack thing.
That worked for him.
Which worked.
Yeah.
So I think it can work sometimes, although 24/7 flipped it. And he said something like, yeah, I am like a bike rack. Like, something like, I ride up in your girl and then I lock that shit down.
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
And like, I feel like he edged the battle because of that. Anyway, like those are two very skilled guys who pulled it off. But I think this might be a little controversial, but I think part of the problem with Bender Big T was that people were waiting for that battle for years.
Right.
And that really worked against it. And I think it's the same thing that happened with Fresco Young Ill, is that, like, in our minds, we've created this classic battle, this style clash, this sort of, like, you know, KOTD guy who's great on KOTD versus a URL guy who may not have even heard of this guy.
Right.
But they come together, they both really try hard, and it's fantastic. But that's totally unrealistic, because in reality, Young Ill is saying, you look like a Forever 21 model, and you look like you couldn't afford a water bottle.
That must have been freestyle. Like, he must have forgotten.
He was definitely freestyle. Yeah. Both of them freestyled in that battle.
Yeah.
Except Fresco's way better. And I mean, like, and I think those battles both kind of suffer for the same reason. Like, you know, for the hardcore fans anyway, is that, like, we wanted those battles for years, and if you were paying attention, even before RM, like, on rapmusic.com, people were talking about these battles. And one of the things that makes KOTD a great league is that they pay attention to this very small subset of hardcore fans and what they think are good battles. And they're very good ideas. But the problem is that, like, if you get one of those battlers who's like, who the fuck is Fresco? Yeah, I'll take $2,000.
Right.
it might not end up, like, creating a very good product.
Right.
So I would actually suggest KOTD don't listen to the fans on some of these things. Because, like, it's just like...
Well, look at, I mean, Pasosa was something that we'd been calling for
we wrote
a long time.
Which called for it, and I mean, it fell apart for other reasons. I think that one would have worked, though, because I think someone like Pass has too much pride to, like, turn in a shitty performance. And Osa would have been great, too, right? That fell apart for other reasons.
Right.
But what are some other ones we called for in that?
Pat Stay Caustic.
Still would love to see that.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
I'd like to see Big K Caustic at this point.
Big K Caustic. Big K Pats. Fuck, any of them.
Yeah, Big K Pat Stay. We called for Lux Hollow. That worked out nicely.
Oh, I didn't even remember that. Yeah, okay.
Fresco Bender, which
I would see that, like, that sort of combines the two that I was just talking about, except both guys would try really hard, I think. I think that would be great. Do it, Fresco Bender. Yeah, so listen to the fans, KOTD. Forget what I just said there.
Right, I don't think Organis made it this far into,
I don't think so.
into the podcast. What else should we talk about? Let's talk about, at length, Verb's performance.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I was about to say, let's talk about that battle.
So, what did it look like to you from the pay-per-view's perspective?
Well, part of me wants to give Verb the benefit of the doubt. The next day after the event, he's like, I had to go to the hospital and all this stuff. He did not seem sick, like, in the video up until that point. To me, it seemed very much out of nowhere. And I mean, like, if Fresco was able to rap after basically throwing up in his mouth or something like that, surely if he had the material, he might have been able to soldier through. At the same time, like, I don't want to be the type of guy who's like, you know when you're, like, sick and someone's like, you're not sick. That's the worst thing in the world, right? So I'm giving Verb the benefit of the doubt. At the same time, I'm not 100% certain here that, like, I don't fully believe him that he was sick. Like, I can totally see, like, a battler, like, pulling a stunt where, like, they pretend to be sick because they know, like, they have such a great fan base that, like, it's not really going to hurt them that much at the end. And they're still going to collect the money and all this stuff. Like, it was disappointing, but on the other hand, we got to see Caustic do his thing.
Yeah, so I'll address Verb first. Seeing it live, you know, between the coughing, he says some very clear words. Like, nah, this ain't happening. Or so he says a few things.
What does he mean by this ain't happening?
I think it's like, I'm not choking through this. I think he says, I don't do this. It's like
yeah, that sounds about right.
And it seemed a lot to my first impression was that he was faking it. Yeah. And I saw the tweets about going to the hospital and people being like, "Are you okay?" I don't know. With social media being as it is, post a fucking selfie in the emergency room.
Good point.
You know?
You just need like the wristband on your hand showing that you've been admitted.
Yeah. You know, and I looked for that. I didn't see anything. So, you know, short of calling Verb a liar, he fucked up that performance pretty bad. Like,
well, the first part of it was definitely for shoddy.
Right. Yeah. There's that. He had minimal content. A lot of it was for shoddy. He had no third round. Can you think of a time? So I guess there's Math Hoffa skipped around against shoddy and Don't Flop. His second round. Hitman Holland conceded is another, and well, we can talk about that history a bit. So you had Math Hoffa
second round
torpedoed the second on purpose, saying like, "I don't respect you enough to even bring 3 rounds," and I think he was the first one to ever do that as a strategy. So you can at least not necessarily respect, but you can at least appreciate that is. You know, he's saying, like, I'm so confident in my first and third round material that I'm still going to beat you no matter what happens in the second.
I'll still get the 2 rounds for the win. It's
right.
Still like it's bullshit.
But you know, and did it very consciously.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether you respect that or not is up to you. But at least it was the first time, in my knowledge, that something like that had ever happened. And then you have Hitman Holla versus Conceded on the URL. I don't even know what event that was, but was that Gnome or was that
it was just from last year,
whatever it was. Yeah, whatever it was, what seemed to happen and what seemed to be revealed kind of after that battle came out was that they had agreed to only write 2 rounds each and basically, you know, fake their way through the thirds, and the crowd went crazy. You know, Hitman tried to recycle a bunch of stuff and the crowd knew it every word, so they could like rap along with what he was saying, and then he had to stop because he's like, "Oh my god, they're on to me." And Conceded was like melting down, like dissing people in the crowd, and so yeah, you had that, but I can't think of any like modern top tier guy who just is like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I guess like Clips versus Chilla. Did the Raptors just win?
No, we're by the way, we're taping this during the Raptors game. There's a minute left in the third, and they're up 21 points. Awesome. So safe to say we'll be not taking a break to watch the rest from the bar, unless there's an absolute collapse.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Also, I'm here. Also in Toronto news, I'm hearing there's a new Rob Ford crack
That's
video.
what I was pointing at my phone for. So the Sun and the Globe have both stories coming up, and it's like Latorante, who used to work for the Globe, who works for Twitter now, is like, how long are they going to sit on this scoop? So the Sun, let's see. So the Sun says the mayor was caught on tape complaining about his wife and making lewd remarks about Karen Stintz.
How recently?
That's 30 minutes ago.
No, but like, when's the video from?
Oh, who knows? But I mean, that's either way. The Globe has seen a video. The Sun has, and it's like, you know, is there going to be a race to get this up online first? Who knows? In any event,
all right, it'll all be out by the time this podcast
by the
goes
time
out.
This comes out, it'll be old news.
Breaking news. Yeah.
So what about Caustic's performance?
So Caustic, you know, I think Caustic had the right approach to that battle. You know, you have Verb, who didn't give a shit, obviously, and had like, you know, I've seen people quote a few bars, and it's like, oh yeah, that's fine, like it's nice material, but the case, you know, when like a guy tries really hard, and then versus a guy who doesn't care at all, and then the guy who doesn't care at all kind of wins because of that, where you have like DNA versus Clips versus DNA and Clips versus Chris Lease and Unanimous, who have like rehearsed and written all this like really targeted material and like put on this flawless performance against DNA and Clips in Don't Flop, who just kind of like freestyle and laugh their way through it. And it almost feels like Clips and DNA win by kind of like punking them by not caring. That's not what happened with Caustic and Verb. Like, Caustic's material wasn't supremely rehearsed and like, you know, top notch like for 3 rounds. It was like he had a lot of freestyle stuff, some like, you know, indirect jokes here and there. Some like, I hear your shirt looks like Shotgun Suge's back. So it's not like Caustic's material was that much better than Verb's, but it's just like that Caustic's presence in putting, you know, a little bit of effort into it, freestyling a lot, and then I think what really, you know, zips the body bag up is it's the banter between all of the content, where like, you know, at the beginning, before Caustic even starts rapping, you know, Verb's playing with his necklace and his microphone, and Caustic's like, yeah, you know, tuck that shit in, dog, and like to his chain, and it's just like that kind of banter where, you know, when Verb is choking, he's like, oh, I must be allergic to this whack shit that you're spitting, and Caustic is like, without missing a beat, it's like, that's the best line you've had all night. And like it's like those little things kind of between everything where he just kind of punks him repeatedly. Even
Caustic's a very smart guy, a funny guy, very quick.
Mm-hmm.
And in a battle that is called on 12 days notice, like, those attributes work very well under the circumstances, I think, right? Like, you know, he was loose, he was comfortable, he was throwing things out here and there, like, making some shit up, had some stuff written that was good too, like, just really suited him well, the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The fallout from the event, at least, well, I'm sure we'll see a lot more once the battle comes out.
Oh, boy.
Verb was saying, oh, well, the black people think that I won, and the white people think that you won. So we'll just leave it at that. And first of all, that's problematic for several different reasons.
Yeah, man, I don't even want to touch that.
You know, and I saw a lot of people saying, oh, Verb 2-1, Verb 3-0, Verb, you know, Verb killed him. And it's like, oh, bars over jokes.
I think this battle, like, it shows, like, the extreme degree to which, like, fan bases will ride with their guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Verb could have shit himself on stage, and some people would be like, yeah, man, but, like, Caustic was disgusted by it. He had to leave the room. He, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's that element of battle fans that they will ride with the guy. It's sort of like what I'm saying with, like, Lux, like, you know, his fans are like Kobe fans, right?
Yeah.
They'll just, they're fans to the point where they're completely unreasonable about anything else or anyone else having, you know, even beaten that person on a given night. Mm-hmm. Like, clearly Caustic was the better MC that night. Like, Verb very well could have completely faked sickness to get out of doing a final round. Mm-hmm. And there are people saying 3-0. Right. How do you win that round if you didn't even rap in that round?
Very few are saying 3-0, but I'm seeing, you know, him retweet 2-1s and being like comfortable with that performance.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, and which I find so problematic that, you know, a guy thinks that he can get away with that kind of
and
performance.
That's the thing with, like, with the number, man, there are some awful battle fans on Twitter. Not anyone who follows TOBattleBlog, by the way. But there are some people who are just looking for retweets from battlers. And man, who said it the other day? Someone was like, man, I think it was Hollow. He's like, man, you'll really suck some dick on Twitter for a retweet, won't you guys? Or something like that. It was something along the lines of that. And it's like, it's totally true. Like, people will go on Twitter and be like, yeah, Verb killed Caustic. Caustic sucked. Because they know Verb is going to retweet that.
Right.
And in turn, Verb is going to get hundreds of these things from his fans and be like, yeah, I really did kick his ass.
It was debatable, yeah.
And I practiced for 30 minutes beforehand. And And then it's like, okay, next time he gets booked in KOTD, is he going to try versus the Saurus or something?
Right. Well, yeah, not Thesaurus, but there are rumors that it'll be Ilmac versus Verb. That they
Ilmac
will
versus Jesus
that
Christ.
they will book him
He is
again.
going to get fucking killed by Ilmac if he brings performance like that again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you even book Verb again if you're a KOTD?
No, I would not book Verb. I mean, I suspect he was. I mean, he is kind of at fault for the shoddy battle not having gone down in the first place.
Right, because he didn't make it to Blackout. Shoddy was in the building and Verb wasn't the first time it was supposed to happen.
You didn't get there to Toronto, and then on this sort of remake, which ended up being against Caustic, it's like, granted, it was like 12 days notice, but like, dude, you probably started in the freestyle era. 12 days is enough for whatever they're paying you.
Mm.
There's a certain amount of stuff that you can like recycle,
right?
Stuff that isn't like directed at a particular guy. Although it was very obvious that it was recycled, the opening stuff for Shoddy.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's stuff that you can use again. I would not book him again just because I didn't think he was that good against Disaster either. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people that argued 2-1 or 3-0 on that one as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't think he was that
great. The majority, in fact, gave that to Averb. I think you and I both saw it for Diz.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I if anything, his performances are, well, I mean, there's only one to compare it with, but he did not do very well on his second KOTD thing. I mean, I think there are a lot of guys that need to be reconsidered for getting invites back ever again.
Yeah. I mean, meanwhile, though they do bring the views. Like, if their fans are still willing to say...
It's a difficult thing to judge, because it's like you might be getting the worst of Verb, but like even Verb at 2/3 of his average views for your league is higher than your average in general, right?
Yeah.
So is that worth it to you?
Yeah.
But it's still probably a lot of money to get Verb to come out to these things.
Yeah, and from what I can tell too, it's a lot of effort too, because he wasn't staying at the hotel with the rest of the guys. He wants a nice hotel, and he needs more special treatment than a lot of these other guys who just are happy to get flown out or to even battle on the platform.
Right.
Verb is... I interviewed him very briefly, and he's talking about I'm gonna move on to movies soon, and
movies. Wow.
And who knows? I mean, who knows what kind of movies he's gonna be in? But he shows up, and the photos in the recap. If you go to the end of the recap on TOBattleBlog, the best photo of the night that I took out of the 2,000 photos that I took throughout the battles was of Verb close up posing and looking like, wow. We just saw a headline that says Rob Ford takes leave as new drug video emerges. That is a big story.
Takes a leave? He never takes a leave. What the fuck?
Holy smokes.
Wow, he's holding something in that photo.
That's a new drug video?
It says as new drug video emerges. There are multiple drug videos of our mayor.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Takes leave. Holy smokes. Should we take a break?
Maybe, yeah.
We're at an hour and 16 minutes, so let's talk, what else do we have to talk about V2R, and then we'll just wrap it up.
You know what, maybe quickly, Big K Thesaurus or something.
Yeah, Nitty Magic we should talk about too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of those. Those are in the top battles.
Let's go Nitty Magic. Who do you think won that battle?
I don't know.
It's a good thing.
I think Magic was good for a KOTD debut. On the other hand, not at his best. He was at 75%, I would say.
Yeah.
Which was still good.
But
especially on a night when Verb
right.
shit the bed.
I thought though that Magic may not have hit every performance note. He had a few stumbles, but his writing was classic Magic. Like, he had so many lines.
Yeah, no, he had some great stuff, absolutely.
And I thought he had the best, I guess the best debut on the night.
Yeah.
Unless there weren't that many debuts, but out of, I guess, well, there was Suge too, who fumbled a lot, but yeah, I thought Magic got a lot of reaction, and the crowd very clearly was a big fan of his. Like, when he did his closer, so many people in the crowd.
I was shocked that everyone was following along with that.
Me too.
It.
Yeah. That, and then I think Nitty had edged him on performance, but maybe had not quite as many hot bars, and despite having some really hot bars in that performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Big K Thesaurus. Who do you think had that?
Big K. Yeah, I thought he was Big K doing what he does, like with just the heavy haymakers, but also now being comfortable enough in a battle to do rebuttal.
Yeah.
And
starting with a freestyle, because he started with a freestyle, like, talking about the shoes that Thesaurus was wearing, saying that
they're from the last event.
Right. Well, he was like, "Oh yeah, you wore those last year against DNA." Sure, that battle was, I think.
Last year?
It was.
That was
Vengeance 2, which would have been in 2013.
So that was probably like 13 months before. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about March or April of 2013.
Yeah. It was still cold out, I remember. But, so yeah, anyhow. Big K killed it. And, like, Big K is a guy that he's not necessarily all that direct with his content.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, like, I'll do violence to you. I'm better than you. But he throws in enough, like, against Ilmac, take those, like, the WRC bars, take the 2 rings and shove them up your pussy. Against the Thesaurus, he had the, if you own a Thesaurus CD, you're a motherfucking nerd, whatever the line was.
Which Thesaurus thought was funny, which is great.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think Big K just has, like, he has such solid stage presence that also translates to video. Because not everybody, some people have stage presence and then it doesn't necessarily correspond with the video. But I think that K has solid enough content, a lot of personality, a very clear character of who he is. I think that that's actually what sets people apart in terms of what I really enjoy watching right now is, like, a guy like, O'Shea and Definition both have new battles against O'Shea versus Big J and Definition versus Redzer. And, like, I don't know if it's just because I've been watching them longer or I kind of, quote, know them better from having watched them and their personalities on Twitter and in battles. But, like, those guys don't have to bring as much solid content because I find them so entertaining to watch. A guy like Uno Labos too, like, such a defined persona. And I think that Saurus and Big K, Danny Myers, Caustic have that. But it's like, other than Verb being, like, a top battler, I don't feel like I know his personality very well. Likewise with KG the Poet. It's like, he brings material, but I don't really feel I know him. Oh, and I mean, I would also argue, like, Chill is a bit like that, and whereas Daylight has a very clear personality that I enjoy, that I'm entertained by.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of that. I think something that's great about Thesaurus is that, like, he's one of the few people that actually brings, like, angles on the guys that he's facing.
Yeah.
Like, he brings in, like, hey, your URL debut, you skipped your friend's funeral.
Right.
To do that. And Big K's, like, shaking his head. Pretty sure I watched that right before I interviewed Big K. And he says, like, yo, I missed my buddy's funeral, like, to be here or something. And, like, people in the crowd kind of, like, nod, but they're kind of like, what?
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I don't think anyone's taking that as an angle on him before. But, like, that's when he faces, I think, a guy named, like, 7:30 or something like that.
Right.
It's his Euro debut, and, like...
It's a rap grid battle, isn't it?
No, it's...
Or no, that's
Proving
9DM.
Grounds.
Sorry. Yeah.
Proving Grounds battle.
7:30, who is terrible, and Big K, who is incredible.
Big K's amazing in that battle. But, pretty sure he says at the beginning that he skips, like, his buddy's funeral.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's shaking his head and denying it in the battle, but, like... You know, that's one reason why Thesaurus is so good and why he was able to break down someone like Sharon, who was on a huge roll, is because, like, he watches these battles, he checks the shit out, and, like, he brings angles, and, like, the crowd reacts to it. They're, like, hearing that, and they're like, oh.
Right.
You know, you can hear people, like, react to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make Big K look good. I still think he came out on top, but, like, that's what makes this a good battle, is that, like, Thesaurus actually brings shit to the table.
Yeah.
As he does against everyone.
Yeah. We've talked about most of the battles on that card. I think all that's left is Tax and Shug.
I can't believe I'm saying this. Loved Tax in that battle.
Really?
Really enjoyed
Interesting.
Tax. Yeah.
Why?
I thought it was very reminiscent of his performance at... I guess Blackout 3 against Caliente.
Right, yeah, which was a great one, yeah.
Where, like, that was a very good performance, and I think we had him in, like, our top, like, or, like, most underrated or top up-and-comers or some sort of thing.
Most underrated was one of the first pieces we put out, and he was definitely on there, yeah.
And we put him on it, and, like, he was very, like, the crowd was really vibing with him in that, and... You know, he did a lot of content about Caliente being homeless or something like that, and the crowd was eating it up. And I felt like this one was kind of similar, where, like, he was clowning on Shug's weight and various other stuff.
Biggest body of the night, and I'm not talking about your size or whatever it is.
Yeah, like saying like a video of his was censored on YouTube because of them titties and like, all sorts of stuff, which Lush loved that line. And I feel like, you know, he was pretty solid against guys like Cortez and Nitty, but it was so like so narrowly focused on the gun bar stuff that, like, when he's actually kind of like playing around, like, some of his insults are actually quite clever. And when you get into sort of like the jokey stuff, like, I don't think when he's doing it, it's actually like corny. I don't think you can like get on his case about that. I think it's just like funny and like pretty good. And like when he's doing like sort of mean, humorous stuff, he might be at his best doing that. And I mean, like, you know, Shug kind of bodied himself in that. He choked all 3 rounds. But, you know, I'm like, clearly Tax is the Toronto guy that KOTD is pushing. He's getting on all the big cards. He's getting names that are way bigger than his at this time. And I think they're, like, I saw an RM thread the other day, like, who do you not want to see on the Battle of LA card? And a lot of people put Tax on it. Because, I guess, you know, he's been on all the big cards for a while, and they're just kind of sick of him. On the other hand, like, what I saw from, you know, against Shotgun Shug, like, you know, he kind of went back to that sort of style, I think, that was used so effectively against Caliente. He did some really good stuff, like, playing to the crowd, but not totally pandering. Like, he did that, Forgot About Dre, like, sort of thing, like, which, you know, takes more effort than just Wikipediaing, like, LA references or something like that, right? So I thought he was good. Like, I'd like to see him on more cards where he's using that style.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a definite blowback from the RM, you know, OTBVA crowds that don't like him, but I think that's less important than, you know, if there's 2,000 people that frequent those boards, there's 200,000 people that are watching King of the Dot videos daily. So, or not daily, but, you know, when a new big battle drops. So I think that King of the Dot's going to listen more to the 198,000 people that are watching and whether they like those battles or not, and whether they say, because I think, you know, Shug started off really strong got a lot of crowd reaction. You know,
all the Mexican jokes.
Right, for Mexican jokes. That
sorry to interrupt, but we need to do a post on guys taking ethnicity angles that don't actually apply to that
Yeah.
guy, because he did a bunch of Mexican stuff and Tax is Ecuadorian,
I believe so.
or something like that. He's
Yeah.
not Mexican either way.
Yeah.
We need to do a whole post because there's a ton of examples
Right.
of these where it's like, oh, you're Asian, that means you're Chinese. No, not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Or like
Chinese is like not Somalian, as Luciano Crack
oh,
called.
that was
He was from Yemen.
Huge angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I mean
Yeah.
like, you know, if you're like Hispanic, like there's a million ways to fuck that up, right?
Yeah.
I
mean, likewise, you know, Uno Labos isn't a milkman. Like,
maybe a mistaken identity.
Right.
Or something.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I'm glad that you like Tax. I thought he did well.
Did you like him in the venue?
I did. I was kind of half and half. Like, there were a few, like, he had a Nelson Mandela interpreter bar
It's been an old reference.
Yeah, and that several people had at Blackout. You know,
Right.
I think J-Pro had one. You know, Manic was complaining that you know, that Tax had bitten his bar that he used at Gastown, even though J-Pro and I think maybe one other person had used something like a similar reference at Blackout, you know, before that. There was the Flappy Bird, you know, like, oh, your girl's always hitting the pipe or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
That's another one. You know, we probably watch more battles than Tax when it comes down to it. But, you know, I think with a lot of these bars that are kind of easy references to something that is in popular culture at the time, you kind of have to vet your content with someone who maybe is more familiar. I'm not saying Tax should hit me up for editorials, but like, you know, like, I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff that I'm hearing that it's like, okay, that's actually kind of played out by this point. That, you know, so I mean, that's a small complaint, and it's one that, again, those 198,000 people or whatever, even the 98,000 people that watch that battle won't be aware of because they haven't watched every battle that I have. So I can see why RM and OTBVA is like, oh, you know, he's not as good as everybody else.
Yeah.
But I can also see why Toronto rides hard with him, and why like the fans as a greater whole might enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's an hour and 30 minutes of content. We're going to end it there. Thank you very much for sticking around if you have been sticking around this far. Let us know what you think on Twitter, TOBattleBlog, Facebook.com/TOBattleBlog. If you're listening to this, you already know all about us. I'm Chris, signing out.
I'm Matt.
Signing out. And, yeah, talk to you soon.
Okay.